So I've been using this mouse for over a week now. I cannot get this thing off my desk. And in this video, you will find out why. And as a quick disclaimer, this mouse actually was sent out to me by Ninjutso themselves. Huge thanks to them for sending it out. But as you know, as always, that will not affect my opinion on a product whatsoever. And before we get into the full review, I wanted to mention that only about 22% of you guys watching me are actually subscribed. So please hit that sub button and the bell right next to it if you're enjoying the content at all. And if you're interested in future enthusiast reviews. And as the first thing I want to mention with this product is that the 8K dongle is not included with this mouse. The marketing has been pretty darn misleading, and I did call them out for that over on Twitter, which got a lot of attention. I've also heard back from a member of their team already, so I definitely hope that they will make sure that this won't happen ever again. But basically, when you go over on their website, the mouse is marketed to support up to 8K. It is actually stated in one of the marketing images if you scroll further down on the website, but in the actual section where you're buying the mouse, it is not mentioned. That being said, you can't buy the high polling rate dongle yet, and there's no date yet announced when it will actually release, but I do think that it will be available very soon, since they are also going to be stocked at other retailers in the near future, since the Chinese New Year is finally over now. Getting into the not so boring stuff this time around, the unboxing experience is freaking awesome. Inside of this very premium looking box, you will obviously find your mouse, the stock dongle, which currently only supports 1K. I have heard rumors about it being able to support 4K in the future, but I cannot confirm that. But when comparing it to this Prime dongle, it wouldn't surprise me if this one would actually be able to support 4K in the future. You also do get both of your pairs of skates to actually mount on a mouse, and you will actually need these because the mouse doesn't come with skates installed to hit those 39 grams as advertised. I personally am actually a fan of this because then I can just take whatever skates I want to use, put my holes in, and call it a day. But for the average Reddit user, this is really bad. There are already posts on Reddit flowing around where people find these skates and simply don't know what they are and what to do with them. So if I were in Ninjutso, don't do that again, even though I am a fan of it personally. You also get your USB-A to USB-C cable, which is rather stiff, and some toilet paper. Now in terms of the actual shape, this is for claw grippers only. I could see this perhaps working out for a palm grip for some people, but this is heavily claw focused, especially for that aggressive claw grip, but you can also pull off a relaxed claw grip for sure if your hands are 19 by 10 or smaller. I wouldn't recommend it for anything bigger than 19 by 10 since my fingers are already reaching the end of the mouse buttons, but for my 19 by 10 hands and my aggressive claw grip that I do, this shape is fucking perfect. The hump in the back is not the steepest in the entire world, so it is actually pretty viable, but the sides are pretty tapered. And what I mean with tapered is that they go from wide up on the top to narrow down towards the bottom, which has caused many issues, especially on Lamsu mice where the tapering is pretty steep as well. But for some reason, I don't find it to be as much as an issue on the Sora, mainly because the tapering is not as steep. It is a tiny bit more mellow and not as aggressive, so I didn't have any real comfort issues, especially because it has this added length compared to the Maya. But overall, these two mice are barely comparable, with the Maya being a center hump mouse, much shorter, and generally not the best in the entire world for that claw grip, since it's not claw focused but much more a viable shape for many different types of grips. But keep in mind the tapered sides, and if you want to know more about the Maya, definitely check out my video up here in the corner or down in the description. And whilst we are talking about the shape, it is actually changed since the original Sora V1 or the 4K. As you can see, the overall design is a tiny bit more narrow towards the rear, and the mouse buttons have these tiny little comfort grooves on the Sora V2 here on the right side compared to the V1, which don't have any comfort grooves at all. This change is freaking goated. When comparing them from beneath, you can see that the Sora V2 is ever so slightly shorter and also just ever so slightly more narrow towards the rear. When I actually compare them side by side, the only difference that I can feel is that these sides are actually a slightly bit more tapered over on the Sora V2. I don't like that change personally because I am a big hater of really tapered sides, but I do find find that the original Sora V1 sides were a tiny bit more comfortable and never gave me any pain at all. But sometimes when using the Sora V2 in intense situations where I need a really good grip, because of the tapered sides where you need to angle your fingers in towards the center, it could be a bit annoying or fatiguing. But then again, I've been using this for over a week straight, constantly been playing Fortnite all the freaking time, and I've never had any real issues with it. And this has quickly become one of my favorite shapes of all time. The only change that I would do would make the sides a tiny bit less tapered, and then this thing is freaking perfect. And because it has that tiny bit more narrow of a hump towards the rear, it just feels that much less restricted. You don't have this feeling of not being able to do these micro adjustments with the Sora V1 because of the width on the hump, because those support wheels are just kind of gone here over on the sides. So it is much more viable for different types of grips, and overall feels more maneuverable. Big W for those shape changes, Ninjutso. Keep up the good work, but please don't become the new Lamsu with your tapered sides. Another comparison I want to do quickly, because the OP1 8K has become this freaking popular, is the following. You can see that the hump language and positioning is actually really similar. It is not this super aggressive hump where you can only pull off a really aggressive claw grip, but indeed a hump that is very inviting for both relaxed and aggressive claw grip. But as you can see, the OP1 is definitely more narrow towards the front, and also the sides are much flatter on the OP1 8K. The OP1 8K, or the OP1 in general, is this very blank canvas where you could use it with any sort of grip because of these flat sides, whilst the Sora is definitely more tapered. So if you do play fingertip grip, I would definitely go for the OP1 instead, but just remember that the OP1 in general is definitely the smaller mouse in this comparison. I wouldn't recommend this even for an aggressive claw grip for any hands above 19x10. And if you want to know more about the OP1 8K, check out my video up here or down in the description below. In terms of the weight, with skates installed, it's around 41 grams, so this is absolutely competing with a cheese grater like this one. Coming in at the same weight as the Beast X on my copy here, and being a completely solid shell design is just simply impressive. This just really shows how the material that you use doesn't really matter that much, because what really matters is to have an engineer that actually knows what they're doing. In terms of the overall QC, I only have one single issue. The post travel on these side buttons is quite a lot, especially if you press towards the rear. You can press this side button straight into the shell. Now this only happens if you exaggerate it like I am doing right now, and in game I have never had an issue with these side buttons, but if you're somebody who monkey grips their side buttons, this could probably be an issue for you. Now in terms of the buttons, this one actually spots the arm-run opticals. Arm-run opticals are super snappy, very tactile, but not too heavy. Now these are definitely not on the lighter side of switches, so they're not the most spammable in the entire world, but currently these are 1,000,000,000% the best optical switches out there. Now as already stated, the side buttons have quite a lot of post travel, and once you've actually pressed mouse 1 or mouse 2, there actually is quite a lot of post travel if you go towards the very end of the clicks. If you just press on the plungers, there's nothing that really could be ever annoying, but if you do press your clicks over to the very end of the mouse, just remember that there will be some post travel. However, it is not nearly as horrible as on a Maya. The scroll is absolutely perfect, it's got these pretty defined steps, it doesn't feel loose or cheap at all, and mouse free is also fine. A tiny bit heavy, but it's fine. And because these arm-on opticals actually are this freaking good, I want to give you a sound test as well. As you might have been able to hear, this mouse sounds quite a bit different to your average gaming mouse. And that is because this thing is made out of polycarbonate. It's definitely pretty cool, and the mouse overall does just feel different. And what I mean by that is just the mouse feels like polycarbonate. It doesn't feel like this normal ABS plastic, but it has this kind of soft feeling. It's just like how on the ULX you will notice that it is made out of a different material, but I don't mean that in a negative way whatsoever. The coating is this very smooth finish. It feels slightly rubbery, and it's overall just amazing. As soon as your hands just get a tiny bit warm, this thing will grip, and you will never need to use grips on this thing ever, unless your hands sweat like crazy or your name is Stubby. And talking about Stubby, when I Stubby squeeze this mouse, nothing happens because this mouse actually has a big structure piece in the bottom of the shell so that the mouse cannot flex despite being this lightweight. It is overall very well engineered, but when talking about the stock skate experience, there's really nothing much to talk about. They're just dyed skates. There's nothing really horribly wrong with them, but if you know, you know. Your glide will be just fine with them, just like I've been fine with using dyed skates on my OP1 8K, but I would definitely prefer a mouse to come with 100% PTFE skates right out the box. Now, in terms of the battery life, I'm actually quite surprised because it's pretty bad. You can only run this this thing on 1K and I've already had to charge my mouse about 3 times. It's been between 7 and 9 days of constant use, and if the battery performance is that bad on 1K, I don't want to know what it's gonna be like on 8K. You'll probably be able to play 1 game of Valorant and then you'll have to charge it. But maybe they can improve on that with some firmware updates. Now in terms of the software, you actually don't even have to download anything. All you need to go is go to ninjaforce.co or click the link down in the description, connect your device, and then you can do all your settings right here in your browser. I would recommend setting the competitive mode on, obviously setting your right DPI, and everything else is simply up to you. As all I've already said several times, this mouse does not support 8K right now, unless you will buy the dongles sold separately in the future. You'll also be able to do firmware updates here in the future as well. And that's already about it. So when it comes to my personal opinion about this thing, this mouse makes me goon daily. The only thing that I could get this thing off my desk with would maybe be my OP1 8K, but honestly, I really love these things equally as much. I prefer the more flat size on the OP1 8K personally, but the overall comfort on the Sora V2 is also freaking amazing, especially with this hump change towards the rear. But then again, the tapered sides are not the best thing in the entire world, but once you're actually in game for an extended period of time, it's just something that you don't really think about anymore, especially compared to something over on the Lamsu Maya. Currently, this is my favorite wireless mouse of all time. I already did enjoy the Sora V1 a lot, but these shape changes just make it that much better. Combined with the about 40 grams of weight, the amazing new coating, and the freaking awesome arm run opticals, this mouse just basically ticks all boxes that I am looking for in a mouse. If these sides were just less tapered, it would be my absolute end game shape. Of course, there will always be people who enjoy these tapered sides, but in general, there is a reason why almost no mice have this amount of taper. Keep that in mind, Ninjutso. So if you're a fingertip player, definitely go for the OP1 shape because it's just that much more safe with the flatter sides. But if you do play a relaxed claw grip, normally I would say that the OP1 is more preferred because it has this tiny bit more of a mellow hump. But since I don't play a relaxed claw grip myself personally, it is pretty difficult to decide here. Honestly, both are really good for that relaxed claw grip if you have 19x10 hands, but I wouldn't choose either if you have 20x10 or larger. But in terms of an actual aggressive claw grip, both of these shapes will make you leak. With 19x10 hands, I do think that an aggressive claw grip is pushing it here over on the OP1, so I would recommend this for 19x10 or smaller if you play that aggressive claw grip. And if your hands are about the same size or larger, I would go for the Sora V2 just because it has a bit more room to play around with. And if you do play a palm grip, I would actually recommend you to go see a doctor. But if you can't afford that, go for the Sora V2. Other than that, I personally cannot decide between these two mice, and I am pretty darn sure that these will both be on my desk for a long time. Now, to the conclusion, who is this mouse for? As I've already said a billion times, if your hands are around 19x10 and you play an aggressive claw grip or even a relaxed claw grip, I can definitely recommend this thing. If you play fingertip grip, I can see it work, but I just think that there are some better shape options out there. But in terms of the overall weight combined with everything else that this mouse spots, this is still one of the very best for you right now. And since I also have to say who this mouse is not for, I would not recommend it for anybody who knows that they dislike tapered sides. It can be fatiguing with a aggressive claw grip, but for me personally, despite being a tapered side hater, I can still definitely enjoy this mouse, so take that as you want. And since a lot of people probably skipped most of the video, please remember when buying that you do not get the capability of running anything above 1K currently. If you want to run anything above, you will have to buy the high polling rate dongle in the near future. But if you aren't a complete schizo and don't care about high polling rate that much, just like me, I would definitely go for this thing right away. The OP1 8K and the Sora V2 are definitely some of the best engineered mice ever, with one of them putting more effort into certain aspects as the technological here one on the 8K, compared to the very impressive weight and structural soundness of the Sora V2. So I think that currently about 60% of all people watching this video could pick one of these up and be insanely happy with their purchase. At around $99, there's really nothing you can do wrong when buying this mouse, unless you have really big hands. Other than that, that's about it for this video. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell right next to it if you're at all interested in peripheral enthusiast reviews. Other than that, I'll see you guys very soon. Peace out.
Clear as day, much slimmer. And you tell that right hand to hand, just going one to one, even though these both are smaller mouse. Put my hand on this one and then going to this one, I can feel, again, my thumb and pinky definitely coming